Welcome to another episode of the Apex Perspective podcast. Today I have with me Rohit Baghe, who is currently the AWS Analytics Engineering Manager. Now, Rohit actually has started off his career as a business analyst and project manager, which is quite a unique situation for a lot of the engineering managers I've interviewed in the past. Subsequently, he had led as a managing consultant at IBM, where he took on a lot of marketing strategy and customer roadmaps, and now is of course the AWS Analytics Engineering Manager. Now, Rohit, can I hear from your perspective? Tell me a little bit more about your background and how it led you to AWS.
Yeah, thank you for having me over here, first of all, Arya. About me, I have about around 15 years of experience in all aspects, I would say most aspects of data. Data is just endless, it keeps going on. A little bit about my background, I started off with my undergrad in electronics engineering, did my master's in information systems from Lubbock, Texas Tech. That's when I actually got really into data, like my master's. I had some really good professors. My first job was as you call it, business analyst and project manager up in Boston. From there on, right, like I've transitioned to many different companies, moved gradually towards consulting, management consulting, IBM, and then a local consulting out over here in Seattle. Um, what stayed consistent through all of this is my underlying kind of attraction towards data in different domains, right? Like you have businesses. Within each business, there are many different arms. You have the sales, you have marketing, you have product, you have finance, and so forth. Each one of them has their own set of problems to solve, and data is the glue which kind of helps you get to that point. So that really excited me, and I've kind of stayed around with the data as my underlying kind of theme.
Very interesting. And data tells you it's not just about applicable to one particular aspect of business or even one particular subject. It's actually something that can tell you a story about a lot of different aspects of business. So tell me a little bit more about what was the reason data specifically intrigued you.
Yeah. So what really fascinated me about data was I've worked through many different companies, like companies which made like probably like $10 million revenue to now companies like Amazon, which is multi-billion dollar companies in revenue, right? Um, the there's an endless struggle to make better decisions, and to make better decisions, no matter what scale you have a lot of data, you have a lot of information, you have a lot of reports and dashboards to look into. But how do you make effective decisions? How can you enable as a data professional to understand the business and make those decisions? I think that's the key challenge which everyone struggles with.
Interesting.
Yep.
And I think that what's really interesting about that is data is, from what I've understood from certain classes I've taken at UC San Diego, it actually can reveal the truth about certain things and reveal truths that you were not aware of beforehand. Now, for you, this is something that you pursued after after I think it was your undergraduate. So what was the rationale behind you pursuing that in your higher education?
That's a great question. So going into electronics engineering, which was very different, very specialized field, to realizing after 4 years, hey, probably this is not where I want to spend my career. And that was the realization I had after finishing off my undergrad. Then, hey, I want something more closer to the business but at the same time, I didn't have an MBA. I didn't want to go do an MBA. I wanted to stay technical. I wanted to understand like how things work, coming from the engineering background. So it seemed like a good course to go and do it. And to be very honest, right, like it's okay to pivot your career and change your career when you don't have to. I mean, there was no. I do believe that like everyone has a long life, and if something doesn't make sense, by all means, if you put time and effort to it, you can learn it, right?
Agreed.
So data ended up being something which interested me, and luckily after my after my graduation, I stuck with it, and this is like, okay, this is like interesting because the problem keeps changing, and that's one thing which I really enjoy about this field is that you cannot go in and apply the same technique or write the same piece of code everywhere, and then you're gonna get the same result, right? Like because
right.
data is like, I like to think about it like an operating system of modern business, which you'll never see, but hopefully is shaping up the right decisions.
Absolutely. And before we get to the actual work you've done with IBM in management consulting and subsequently at AWS, I'd really like to understand something more about, I would say, your start to your career, and I guess how understanding both the technical from your undergraduate and of course now after the master's, how did that shape how you took on your first positioning? Because I know that you started off as I think it was a business analyst, I
Business
believe.
analyst, yep.
Yes. So what was the rationale behind taking a strictly business particular positioning, even though you had both the technical understanding as well?
Yeah, great question. And I think that really talks about my journey overall from where I started off to where I am. I think I was fortunate to start off in a smaller company in Boston. But role was BA/PM/BI/data analyst/DBA, like anything you can put under the bucket.
Okay.
So it was a great way to, I was responsible for data. I was responsible for reporting and dashboarding and all of that, but also responsible for running like random projects and programs in the company. What really that got me interested in is you cannot work in silo when you're in data. You have to understand the business problem, what you're trying to solve, and be very close to it, right? If you think that you're going to remain in your silo and do some kind of data engineering work or like data sciencey work, it's never going to work.
I think it's the exact same, and I apologize for interrupting you, but it's the exact same thing for principal engineers. There's every single principal engineer I've ever interviewed, they've always hit a point in their career where they have to understand tangible business outcomes in order to produce the highest quality of work. And of course, they get into people management, they take on certain leadership teams, but you're absolutely correct on that point that you're not going to stay away from understanding business outcomes if you're going to go forward with wanting to go ahead and make proper impact with your job. But I interrupted you. My apologies. So go ahead.
No, absolutely. I'm obviously biased towards the data side of the world, but I think it was a great, it's the right path forward as you're trying to be a data professional. If you want to go down the data professional world, you cannot, you have to understand the business. You have to not lose sight on that, right? And I've seen like people who've stuck in data, they can go in multiple different routes. It's not like once you're in data that's the end of your career. I've seen people who have worked with me go down product engineering route, like they become PMs, they have PMTs, they have gone down sales route. Like you can go multiple different avenues, having the confidence of, hey, I know how things work underneath, right? So I think that's been super beneficial for me. So I think to go back to your original question, it was important for me to understand my data, understand my business system as a BI, as a BA, PM, to eventually graduate and then realize that, hey, I want to do a lot of this, but a little bigger scale. And that's when consulting came into picture, right? I'm like, okay, there is much bigger fish to fry, much bigger problem to solve. And that's when I realized that actually the problems are pretty much the same. It's just at a very different scale. To fast forward to now, I'm at AWS right now, multi-billion-dollar business. The problem which I was solving 15 years ago, like the business questions I was solving 15 years ago, are pretty much the same. Scale is absolutely very different. Volume is different. Stakes are much higher, obviously. That's the main difference. But the underlying problems are like, hey, why is my product working versus not working? Why is my sales happening versus not happening? How can you help me with that, right? Yeah.
Right. So I will be skipping some time from your first job to IBM, of course, but you led a lot. You got comfortable with understanding the customer journey, the customer roadmap. You led marketing campaigns. What were the key learnings you had from that positioning there, and what were some takeaways you had from that particular experience at IBM?
I think marketing, my whole take on marketing has kind of shifted ever since I started working for Amazon. It's a very different world, right? Like Amazon has a very different take on marketing versus all the previous world. Marketing is great for companies which don't have, is kind of a contentious kind of take on it, but marketing is great for companies which don't sell their product, where the products don't sell by themselves, right? Amazon AWS is a great example. When they came out, they had zero to no marketing, right?
Yeah.
fantastic product. You don't have to sell that product. It sells on its own. Um, Versus companies which are more traditional, where there's more competition. Let's take a insurance company or a banking company, where there's so much competition. You have to become like some kind of a differentiator. So how do you really differentiate your product in a very competitive space? Is where marketing kind of comes in. So you really have to understand your audience and the different P's of marketing, right? Like you have to understand your audience really well, where you're going after, who you're going after, when you're going after. And I'm guessing like in the world that we're living in right now, you have to be hyper aware and hyper like reactive to what your market, what your audience is kind of looking for, because it changes so quickly.
Absolutely. And this is actually where I wanted the conversation ahead. Is really your understanding of the specific audience or the customers you're serving. Is how do you understand the exact problems that they have? Because there's a phenomenon in business where customers say they want something, but they actually might need something different as to what they're saying. So how do you approach actually understanding what the customer wants, but also what they actually need?
Yeah, great question. I think that's a more of a product question. I'll be I don't think I'll be the right person to answer that, and I don't want to like make things up over here. To be very honest, I think that's a question best answered by someone who has spent a lot of time in that discipline. I unfortunately have not.
No worries.
Yeah.
Well, as far as understand the customer roadmap, of course, I think that's something you've gotten acquainted with. What are some things you took away from understanding, or what do you take away from that in terms of understanding what they want and need?
Yeah, I think that's so. If you have an existing customer, and every company has some kind of a churn metric. Churn is basically like, hey, is my customer going to leave me? Are they leaving me? Are they at the risk of leaving me? Right. That's basically churn. That's like for a business, that's like the biggest cost to you. Cost to acquire a new customer is much higher, right? And losing that acquired customer is a big loss, right? I think that's one of the main areas which I've seen a lot of companies kind of struggle or trying to figure out ways of how to do it. There are ways where you can think about it, churn, like, hey, customer, like from churn actually came up from more of the telecom side of the world, from T-Mobile and the Verizons of the world, where, hey, someone is using a phone and suddenly the phone usage has started going down and maybe they are about to leave us, kind of a thing. They're spending less money. A lot of that fed into the SaaS companies, and you're saying like, hey, monthly they were spending so much with us, and suddenly the spend has gone down or the usage has gone down. By the time companies identify that trend and reach out to customers, it's already too late. Like someone has already made their decision and they're probably gone. I think majority of the time and effort that I see a lot of companies will need to do, and they're doing right now, is understanding early on how do we stop that event from even like triggering, where customers have already started like moving away from us, right? Like there are early enough indicators. You don't have to wait for the data to tell you that, okay, the customer is headed out of the door. That's already too late, right? Like, hey, as the customer working with you, your product, your services, your teams, there are indicators, right? And how do you look for those indicators? How do you think about those and implement those? And that's the key.
Right. And I think this is very consistent with actually what some product managers I've interviewed in the past said, is you want to look at customer behavior. Churn rate, like you said, people, them leaving, stop spending money. If there's a particular area or a particular timestamp where they start to leave the company, there's definitely certain indicators that will be indicative of what they need. And I think tracking behavior is one of the most important things to do. I think from what I've understood, I think you made a good point about tracking where they're leaving and such. So what I would like to do now is talk a little bit more about the work you're doing at AWS. But before that, I think we were talking before the podcast started. You and I were discussing about how you see things a little bit differently from both having this undergraduate experience of understanding technical things, and of course going into data. How do you see things a little bit differently now in terms of at the company and enterprise level?
Things have changed. Things have gotten so much easier, I would say, like from when we started. Like the reality about the data ecosystem, this was true back when I started my career, but even now I see it true, but the ways to mitigate them are there now. The You can build any type of analytics or report or dashboard or pretty things on top of it, but if the underlying data you cannot is not trustworthy enough, I mean, that's going to be an issue, right? And that's the
Right.
biggest issue. Like, you can have a data scientist will not, or applied scientist will not be able to operate and make meaningful recommendations or actions if the underlying data is not trustworthy. And that's where I see like a majority of like, and what I say is different right now from now and 15 years ago. There was a lot of there was a lot of heavy lifting which needed to be done 15 years ago. Massive projects, waterfall projects. Say, think about like multi-month, multi-year, multi-team initiative to go solve this historical data and then clean it up and stage it in a way. By the time they stage it, the business requirements have completely changed. To where we are right now, I think the way the systems are designed are very different. The way the data is collected, stored is very different. So it's making it easier to implement these advanced technologies on top of it. I see that's a great place to start today, without having to deal with the busy work or the heavy work that we had to do back in like probably 15 years ago.
Certainly. So not only as an AWS and analytics engineering manager, not only are you focusing on these particular developments, but also you're focusing on building teams and hiring the correct people and putting them in the right places. So when you're looking for building your teams, what do you look for? Because I understand you have input in the hiring process. What do you specifically look for in hires that can actually contribute to the work of the company? And my assumption is that it's also dependent on the conditions of what you're trying to pursue in terms of projects.
That's a great question, and this is something that we have to deal with and like think about as we hire new talent, right, all the time.
Yeah.
And this is probably a good insight for anyone who's looking to get into like one of these big tech companies. One thing we don't expect is for a person to know all possible technology in the world. Things are moving so fast, right? Like even we are just catching up every day. Oh, there's something new. I don't expect a person to know every single technology. There are a few things. One, which has worked for me and which I think also works with a lot of successful people that I've hired. Two things I would say, right? One is curiosity. To be successful in a field of data, you need to have curiosity. You need to know, hey, I've been given a question to go build, let's say, a simple dashboard. What does this mean? Where did this go? How did this, where is this coming from? Who is this asking? What decision are they going to try to make, right? Having that curiosity about the business is like a non-negotiable. The second most important thing, and this is like more of an Amazon thing, but I think it's so true in every other world, is just having ownership of your world. Like you need to own your product or service. And that doesn't mean that, hey, I'm not a PM, I'm not going to own, I don't know what this means. Someone asked me to build a report, I'm just going to build it and give it to them. You need to have ownership. You've built something, you own it, you deliver it, you make sure it is right, it is actually delivering the value. Maybe the person who asked you to build something, or you ended up building a piece of analysis, a document you wrote, did not land the way it was supposed to land. Having the curiosity and the follow-up and the ownership to really understand what happened, why didn't it work, and like kind of following up, having the relentless consistency of following up and understanding, owning the problem that you were given. I think that's so important. Everything else is learnable. These skills are so difficult to find. It seems very easy, but it's so difficult to find.
It is, and you know, I paid very close attention to what you're saying in terms of how they approach solving these problems, because I actually talked to an engineering manager from Google very recently, and one of the focuses he has is the thought process of the candidate. What are they thinking in terms of how to approach and solve these problems? Because that, to him, was more important than the actual outcome he had in the moment, the candidate had in the moment. So do you look for, what's the most important thing for you? Is it the thought process the candidate has, or it's the kind of results that they've produced?
Both, right? Like, so thought process is also very important, right? There is no one right thought process as well, right? When I'm interviewing someone, let's say I'm talking to you, I would want to know how you what are you thinking, verbalize what you're thinking as you're trying to solve a problem. there is no set one path for me that, okay, this is how you solve point A to point B. As long as you
Okay.
can verbalize and you can think about, hey, this is what I'm thinking, this is where I'm going next, this is where I'm going next. And then like first solve that, get from A to B, then think about, hey, is there a better way to go from A to B, right? Is there a faster way to go A to B? Like, is this the right point to go, right? Those kind of things. So the more you verbalize, the more you think about your how you solve the thing, a problem, I think that makes it gives us a better indication that, hey, there is some, again, it goes back to the curiosity of it, like,
Yeah.
and the ownership piece of it. Yeah.
Excellent. And then another question I have for you, and this is just a logistical question: are you focusing on utilizing AI or any agentic AI at the positioning right now?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
all the time.
and that's a really
Yeah.
important. I ask
Yeah.
because this is a really important conversation in terms of maximizing the use of AI. I think I think there's a definitely a trend, maybe with smaller companies or with other individuals, to utilize AI due to the fact that it's considered nice, but to actually have tangible outcomes with AI, it's different, completely different game, right? So how do you approach really leveraging AI in a manner that maximizes impact versus actually appearing like you're using just for the fact of using AI?
Yeah, I think that piece of it is gone now. Like there was some kind of victories you could claim internally into a company. Hey, I'm the token maxing, and I'm like, hey, I'm the maximum AI user. I think those celebratory tokens, what we used to get internally, those are gone, right? Like it
Okay.
is truly, I think of like the fear factor of AI. The AI is going to take away your jobs. I don't think that's true, right? Like I honestly think they are the tool that we are using right now. My team is using on a day-to-day basis. They truly are the thought partners, uh, which is helping us navigate the extremely complex world that we operate in a much
Mm-hmm.
more efficient manner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it used to take a lot of time, and when I say like complex world, AWS as a whole, think about like there are 300 plus services, 300 plus services within Amazon. Each of these services have their own, you would call it a CEO, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
EC2, S3, and so forth, right? Like there are all these different products within AWS, each of these services. Each of them have their own CEO. Each of these product teams have their own software development teams, the massive SDE teams, which are building out, churning out these products. Each of these products have thousands of customers. Thousands of
Mm-hmm.
customers are interacting with these products like across multiple different instances every single second. The amount of data that's getting generated out of it, the amount of gold mine of data that we have is insane. To comprehend, to make any value out of it, it used to take us a lot of time. And I'm
Right.
not like petabytes of data every single day, every single, not even day, like within like an hour or so, right? Like immense amount of data. How do we make value sense out of it? We are seeing that change right now, that like instead of getting just overwhelmed by, and that's just one piece of it. But when you talk about business, the product is one piece of it. I want to understand like this product, there is sales, there is marketing, there is finance, there is operation. There's so many different data sources that you can put together to make some value out of it, to help your CEO eventually tell him or her that, hey, this is the next thing you should do to make some better value out of it, right? Like,
Right.
so
Right.
it's helping us speed up all of that crunching and
Those
getting us to the
processes.
next stage. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So
Apologies. Go ahead.
no, yeah, go ahead.
What I was going to ask is what are the limitations then of leveraging AI when it comes to making sense of new data? Because I know a part of what you just explained is utilizing data to make insightful decisions in the future. What what are the limitations of AI in those workflows? Because I think that's a very important conversation.
I think we are, from what I see, and I don't know what the future of AI looks like, I cannot also go blindly and let AI make decisions or come up with
No, no, no.
narratives which go out to the leadership. Maybe in the future, there'll be a time where it's operating on its own. So human in the loop is here to stay for at least the foreseeable future, right? Like you have, I mean, the amount of groundwork AI covers is amazing. I'm not even kidding you. The speed at which it puts together the content through multiple different data sets back in time, goes historically, puts it together. But someone who has business knowledge, who knows things which are probably
Agreed.
not documented. Like I think the one key thing about AI is that it looks for digital footprint of something and then it brings it back together. It's more often than not. I don't think we are at that stage right now in any company where everything
Yeah.
is digitized just yet. Right.
I actually interviewed the principal AI architect at AWS and a principal AI engineer at McKinsey, and they both have a very common perspective that the actual cap, the limitation is that we don't have enough subject matter experts to review the workflows AI has produced.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of the caps there. So this is a very consistent perspective that I think is not talked about enough. I think that yes, AI is very capable. Yes, it's able to do these things. But when we talk about hallucinations, especially in subjects of finance and healthcare, one wrong hallucination can cause legal trouble, right? This is what we have to talk about. I don't think it's talked about enough, but I really appreciate you reinforcing this important perspective.
Oh, yeah.
So what I'd love to do now is actually shift this conversation a little bit more about you, and we'll go to conclude the podcast after with your plans for this year. So one of the main personal questions I have for you is, what is something about you or your life that you wish more people were aware of or knew about?
So that's a good question.
It's a tough question, actually. It's the hardest question I ask sometimes.
Let me be honest, right? I think I gave you that blurb initially also about myself, right? I'm not a genius, okay? I'm not like a data viz who just knows how to talk to data and different organizations and everything. What truly has worked for me is going back to the same thing, curiosity, right? And just showing up every single day. The power of compounding is real when it comes to money, when it comes to your what work you're doing. You know that the 10,000 hour rule by Gladwell, so that you just continue doing that over and over again, you will get better at that, right? So I think consistency is super important. Curiosity is super important, and just for me, what it really got me hooked up is just seeing a similar problem and a trend across different, as I said, right, multiple verticals, multiple different businesses, everyone's struggling with the same questions, and then helping grow individuals, my teams, to go look at the data problem differently. And I've seen like some of my people who have hired, who have kind of grown, do amazing things. That really excites me. I think I'm kind of probably one of the rare breeds who still like people management than others. So I like that human element. I like to see, share what I have gone through, my experiences, my learnings with my team. And yeah, I mean, that's who I am.
Excellent. Well, Rohit, there's probably a lot of changes between you when you're in your 20s and you now. But if you could name one that's been the biggest difference between you when you're in your 20s and you now, what do you think that change is?
A lot less hair on my head to start with. But I think a few things, right? The first one is just the ability to. There was a lot of ground someone like me who had to cover to get to the stage where we are. And I think things have changed, honestly, in the last 2 years, or last 1 year, a lot. And that we're seeing, like, I'm very honest, right? Like the first 13 years of my career, it was probably like incremental changes. We are saying, oh, this is getting better. Oh, that is getting better. In the last 2 years, we have seen like a seismic shift in our world. And it's amazing, right? Like, and I'm like, whoa, this is like, I did not even imagine that this could happen. So I think this change, I'm hoping that it's setting the bar pretty high for the new breed of businesses, which will be coming into the market right now. The people who will come in and start working for these businesses, the bar is set very high because a lot of the groundwork that a lot of people like me and like a lot of the other folks are doing is already taken care of, right? Which is amazing. So you don't have to do it 80% of the work. Right, and the 20% meaningful work is where you actually get to operate in, which in our world that probably becomes much.
So I had a conversation with the field CTO at Salesforce, and he told me something about investment banking specifically, that these workflows, I think if you look in the next couple of years, junior work it's going to be gone. If you don't become a senior as soon as possible, that's going to become a bit more problematic for the lower juniors. So I think what you're saying is a bit consistent about the groundwork specifically. I think that there was that massive change. I think it changes how you have to approach careers in the future, because the way it's progressing, I think that it's going to be completely fundamentally different. So I appreciate that perspective. So to conclude the podcast, I'd love to understand what your plans are for this year. I mean, on the professional side or even personally.
Professional side, I want to continue. So obviously, with AI coming into the play big time in the last 2 years, I like to say this to a lot of my friends and family as well, right? The reason Amazon hired me probably 4 years ago, we are no longer hiring for those kind of roles anymore, right? Like there have been change. You could not expect a person to know what they knew 4 years ago and still be able to come and be successful in the company. Things have changed so much, right? Clearly, the focus, the impact we are seeing from AI is amazing. I want to spend more time on tooling.
Okay.
What I'm seeing right now is so sorry. I'm going to take you back real quick.
Please.
Data. There's marketing, there's finance, there's product, there's sales, a bunch of different organizations which everyone produces mass amount of data, throw that at a data team, and then we are somehow supposed to make magic out of it and tell a story. What is happening with a lot of this is right now is what I'm seeing firsthand: finance people, marketing people, product people who would not really dabble with data that much. Now they suddenly have the confidence that they can prompt something and then they get the same result or better result, that a better kind of version of a result that they truly want, as opposed to engaging with the data team. So what is becoming more and more important is building the infrastructure where you can enable these teams, these 7 or 8 different teams, to go self-serve a lot, create value out of data the way they want it, and not wait for like a data professional to come in and do it. So I think data tooling would be a massive thing which I see, at least from now, in my foresight. Probably the next year or so, I would want to focus on that.
Very interesting. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Rohit. How do people learn more about you and the work you're doing? Is LinkedIn a good place to learn about you?
LinkedIn is a good place to learn about me. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, Rohit, for joining me on the podcast. It was a pleasure to have you on. This is Aryan Mohindra, and